I just recorded these videos and I ended up hating everything that I just recorded, so I'm gonna try again. As you can tell from the title, I am recommending some books today. None of my videos correlate with each other, so you never know what to expect, so I'm keeping you guys on your toes. I did get into reading this year a lot. I had a goal of 25 books that I wanted to read at the beginning of the year, and I hit that and surpassed it. I'm now at 45 books, which is unreal. Most of them I read on my phone though, so don't be thinking it's an expensive hobby, okay? Let's just go ahead and get into the recommendations. This is romance books, and I can do other genres if you end up liking this. I can do more romance books. These are just the physical books that I have with me that I wanted to start out with. So the first book I'm going to start out with, I think, is a very classic book that if you're trying to get into reading in general, or if you want to try to get into the romance, this is the book I think you should start out with. It is very cute. It's very like, let me just get into it. Okay. Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I love this book. It follows Macy and Elliot, and you start out with Macy's perspective. What? No. This is a childhood friends to lovers, so you follow Macy and Elliot growing up together and in the present. Wait, what? Why am I not explaining this good? You get a past and present timeline in this book, so it is just Macy's perspective. You start off with Macy in the present. She is planning a wedding for herself. She's working, she's trying to stay under the radar, and then all of a sudden Elliot comes back into her life, and you find out that Elliot and Macy haven't spoken in 10 years, and so you're like, what happened, guys? And so that's whenever you get the past perspective and you get to see them meet each other and grow up and grow with each other, and it's just so cute. Macy's dad, whenever she was younger, ends up buying them a vacation house to get away from the city whenever times get stressful, and Elliot just so happens to be her neighbor there, so it is so cute getting to watch them grow up and grow with each other. And then obviously there's romance involved in here. I'm not the best at explaining it, but their love story is just so I love it. I could read this book all the time. I understand why it's a lot of people's favorites. It is childhood friends to lover, like I said, and kind of like a summer vibe, but honestly you could read this any time of the year and be perfectly fine with it. I just cannot get enough of their story, and you finally figure out why they haven't spoken in 10 years, which is honestly kind of heartbreaking for me. So I highly recommend. Super great book. The next book I'm going to recommend is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I will say I read this book at, I'm 23, 24 years old, but I feel like I didn't connect with the characters as much as I wanted to. But if you are like 30 to 35, I will say I think you can connect with the characters better, just because the two main characters are 36 and like 42, I think. So they're kind of older, but still, I mean, I just read it and I love this book. It follows Knox and Naomi, and you do get dual POV, so you get to find out both their perspectives and how they're feeling and how they're thinking about each other. This book starts off with, what's her name? Naomi. Naomi kind of running from her past, and her twin sister Tina calls her over to Knockmount, a small town, and says that she needs her help. And so Naomi goes to try to find out what? Naomi goes to see Tina, and Tina kind of just abandons her, leaves her high and dry, and leaves Naomi with a shocking surprise that nobody knew about in her family. Knox kind of sees Naomi's life kind of blow up in front of her, and he can't really just leave her high and dry, so he has to help her out, just figure out what's happening, where Tina went, and where to go with her life now. This is a small town romance, grumpy sunshine, found family, single parent, great banter. Knox and Naomi just like battle with each other this whole book, which I love. Will say it's like a brick of a romance book. It's like a little over 550 pages, but I don't know, I think it's just so cute. The banter really just like, you fly through it. So easy to understand what's happening. You're kind of rooting for them. But is that all I want to say? I love it. There is a second book coming out called, I think, Things We Hide in the Dark. So that does follow a character in this book. It comes out like next year, so you have time. You have time to read it. Next three books I'm going to talk about are from Colleen Hoover, which is a more well-known author in like the romance genre, I would say. And you either kind of love or hate her. I personally love her, so I'm just gonna put that out there. The first one I'm gonna start out with, I don't have with me, but I gave it to my sister. She's reading it. It Ends With Us, and I want to start with this one just because I'm not going to say a lot about it. I feel like if you say too much about it, kind of spoils it and gives it away. This book follows who is it? Lily. This book follows Lily Bloom. Her life, it is kind of past and present, and past in a way that Lily finds letters that, or notes, words in her apartment. She reads those, and those are in her past perspective, so we get to understand what happened, who she met, and how her life kind of took a turn there. And then you switch to her present timeline and where she's finding new love, trying to go through obstacles in her life, and it is just so good. I ate it up. It is more of a sensitive book, so if you do have trigger warnings, I will say go ahead and check those before you read this book. But if you don't really care, then I would recommend going in blind. It is such a cute little romance. It's actually, I wouldn't say cute, that was kind of the wrong word, but it's so beautifully written, especially for the topic that it covers. And there is a second book coming that follows it, coming out October 18th, which I'm so excited to get my hands on because it follows a character that I love, finally. So yeah, I love that book. The next one is, let me do this one instead. I don't know if a lot of people hate it or love it, but I know that majority of people cry reading it, and I'm majority. I cried. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This one follows Miles and Tate. Tate is like kind of an RN and Miles is a pilot. So Tate needs somewhere to stay, and so she sorry, the truck was moving. So Tate needs somewhere to stay while she's kind of working her residency, I guess, or until she like figures out like where till she gets her own place. And so she stays with her brother, who is also a pilot, by the way. And so she finds out that Miles is her brother's best friend. He lives across the hallway from them. Miles is, from the get-go, very mysterious. We don't really know what's happening with him. He won't share what's happening with him. He's very closed off, doesn't want anything to do with like love or anybody. He's just like to himself and likes to work. Tate can't help but fall for the grumpy like man, the mysterious man. I mean, who wouldn't? I will say this is kind of more one of her like risque-er books, more spicy than the rest of them. So it is in dual perspective, which is kind of iffy. Tate is in the present tense in her perspective, and you can get to see that, but then Miles is written in the past, so that way you get to understand him and understand why he is so mysterious as you go on throughout the book. I think I loved Miles. The camera's about to die, so I'm gonna try to speed run through this. Okay, I think I loved Miles because he was like, his perspective was so beautifully written. It was like so poetic, and so highly recommend. Brother's best friend, forced proximity, sad. Okay, that's it. The last book I have is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and this is dual perspective. You get to follow Ridge and Sydney, and it is, Ridge is a what? Ridge is a songwriter, but he has songwriting block, and Sydney can write lyrics to songs. So they share like a courtyard, and Ridge sits outside on his balcony and just like plays his guitar, and Sydney sits out inside of her balcony and like listens to him while she studies. He sees Sydney across the courtway and like eventually is like, hey, can you write some lyrics for my camera died. But okay, so let me go ahead and finish up this book, but this angle sucks, but we're gonna deal with it. So Ridge and Sydney. So Ridge is like, can you this sucks. So Ridge asks Sydney if Sydney if she can write some lyrics to his songs, and she's like, okay, I guess, like after a while, and whatever. What? Eventually something happens to Sydney and she has to move out of her apartment. She no longer wants to live there for good reasoning, and Ridge is like, yo, just come like stay at my place with my roommates, we have an extra room. So that way there is forced proximity between them because they're obviously living in the same apartment. And I think the side characters in this book are so funny. You have Warren and Bridget. Warren literally is all these tabs, I think, almost. Like, he is like the funniest character I think I've ever read in any book. This, I don't know if I said it, but this is a love or hate book. A lot of people don't like it, and I will say because one of the tropes is a love triangle, and so there is some sketchy scenes that people are kind of like, why would they do that? But I love and I love Ridge and Sydney, so I was rooting for them. I guess that's kind of the point of it. And so then you get their what? And there is an aspect in this book that I did not expect. You find out really early on. I was just kind of like thrown off, but I didn't mind it. You'll know if you read it. So the last thing I will say is that this has a Spotify playlist that follows it. So the songs that Ridge and Sydney write are in this, and you can follow them along on Spotify. I really loved it. It made me cry whenever I listened to them, whenever I followed off, but I'm also very an emotional person, so I just really connected with them. And yes, so I love this book. So thank you for coming to this hoopty little video that I decided to make on a whim. Let me know if you like me talking about books. I could literally talk about books like all day long, and I can even do some recommendations that I've just read on my phone. These are just, as I said, the physical books that I have with me. I can even do like different genres. I do love a good fantasy. I do not like horror, but I can even do a video of me just reading like thriller, mystery, horror books if people want that. Yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.